The Young Team. Okay, with KW in Cleveland, Akron, and Canton. Canton's the baseball Hall of Fame or football? It's one of
Football.
them.
Football.
Football.
Yep.
One of my college roommates was from a town like right next to Canton, which starts with a B, and I can't remember the name of it. Close to there, I don't know. Anyway, but I've never been, but I've heard the Hall of Fame is really cool. All right, let's see. Okay, I think we're live. Everything looks good. Levels look all right. Okay. I don't think anyone's watching right now, so no big deal. Okay, here we go. Today, our guest is Ryan Young from the Young Team with Keller Williams in Cleveland, Akron, and Canton, Ohio, and also the founder of Fellow, which is a seller lead generation tool. We're going to be talking about that shortly. I should also mention, by the way, before I get into Ryan's bio, that I think it's in his bio, but just in case it isn't, he literally has the most successful large team in Ohio. So we're super excited to talk to him about his business Fellow and also the Young Team as well. But let me tell you more about Ryan. He is the CEO of the Young Team, recognized as the number one large size team in Ohio and the number 18 team in the United States by Wall Street Journal Real Trends. The Young Team, this is insane. Last year, 2022, completed more than 600 sales transactions with over 200 million in production. 600 transactions, 200 million in production. Insane. Ryan's a third generation real estate agent with the real estate ingrained, obviously, into his DNA. And the Young Team has been a Keller Williams top 100 team for several years in a row. In 2019, Ryan recognized the challenges faced by agents due to national prop tech companies and founded Flash House. Flash House was a direct-to-consumer iBuyer that bought and sold over 500 homes in Northeast Ohio since 2020. In 2022, Ryan founded Fellow, which is hifellow.com, HIFELLO.com. Link to that in our show notes, which since its launch in October of 2022 is quickly becoming the most powerful seller lead generation tool in real estate, a coveted place to be. Fellow is now being used by 35 of the top 100 Real Trends teams in the country, including Rob Tukansky, Jeff Cook, Robert Slack, Andrew Duncan, and more. Probably many of the people that have been on the show use Fellow. So we're going to talk about that. At his core, Ryan is committed to empowering all agents with the tools and tech that has fueled his team's success. To learn more about Fellow, go to hifellow, HIFELLO.com, hifellow.com for the seller lead generation tool. And if you are an agent in the Northeast Ohio area, this would be Cleveland, Canton, Akron, around there. If you are thinking about maybe seeing what other opportunities exist as an agent, I know I would be reaching out to Ryan because I'd love to get on a team that did 600 transactions and 200 million last year. So anyway, reach out to them. You can visit them at theyoungteam.com. Link to that as well in the show notes. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. For two major reasons. Usually guests, we have one major focus. In your case, we're going to talk about two of them, and I'm really excited. But before we get into, the Fellow and what the technology that you've built does for agents, I'd love to hear your personal journey into real estate, because you, even though it is in your DNA and you're a third generation realtor, it wasn't how you started. You didn't start in real estate. You had a different career. So tell us about how you got into real estate and why.
Yes. So many don't know, but before I got into real estate, I was actually a professional chef. I graduated from the Culinary Institute of America when I was 20 years old and thought I had life all figured out, right? Just like many 20-year-olds. And I cooked all over the country in Chicago and Las Vegas, New York. Um, and all of a sudden I got to my mid 20s and had a mid 20 life crisis and was like, what am I doing with my life? I'm working hard. I'm making no money. Uh, I have no weekends, no holidays. All my friends that I graduated with are all going out and doing things and visiting each other. And I'm stuck, in the restaurant industry working a lot. And so I was in Vegas at the time. I think I was 26. I reached out to my folks who were realtors in Cleveland. They had a team, just the two of them. And I called them and said, "You guys are going to think this sounds crazy, but what do you think about me moving back home?" I was in Vegas at the time and actually getting into the real estate industry. And really, what I was saying to them is, I have an associate's degree in culinary arts. I'm 26 years old. What can I do? What takes the least amount of education? Littlest, actually, that makes sense when I'm saying least amount of education. The least amount of education. Um, it has the most upside, financial upside. And I was like, the real estate industry. You go to school for 120 hours, and next thing you know, you can sell people's largest assets. And
Yeah.
so they said, if you're going to do this, one of our core values is have a decided heart. And if you're committed to it, move back home. So I moved back with them. This was 2009 and got my license and then started building from there.
You have you've made that a very condensed story, but I should mention that when you were working here in Chicago, at least only because I live in Chicago, Ryan wasn't just a chef here in Chicago. He was a chef at the very number one most exclusive restaurant in Chicago, or if it's not number one, it's number two. And Ryan and I were talking about this beforehand, where Chicago has a lot of really, really great restaurants. So he was like at the very top of the mountain. I've actually been to the restaurant Ryan was at. It's called Alinea. Google it sometime if you want to see the crazy molecular gastronomy stuff that they do. But world renowned place. So Ryan was not floundering in his career, but that's just how difficult working in food service can be, even at the top. And so it's so amazing to me that you were able to transition from what I consider, I always think of chefs as being extraordinarily creative. I don't know, maybe that's not always accurate, but I always think like that's a different skill set than doing real estate, but maybe it isn't. I mean, obviously mechanically it's different, but maybe the disciplines and the habits are similar. I'm not sure. So how was it making that transition from, being a real professional chef to going and starting, building a business from the ground floor in a totally different industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I owe a lot of the success I've had in real estate to my professional training in the culinary world. What's interesting is the culinary world is a lot of creativity, right? It's very hands-on. When you're working at the level of restaurants that I was working at, like the one in Chicago, um, it's a very disciplined industry. And when you get to that level of elite restaurants where it's much more than loud music bumping in a kitchen while people are showing up hungover. It's like it's a very like almost autocratic type of like environment where no one's talking, everyone is very laser focused, and you're striving to be the best restaurant in the world, and that comes with expectations. And so it's interesting though that kind of created the work ethic for me on what I applied to what I was doing in the culinary industry and in some of these restaurants where you're getting in at 10 a.m. and you're not leaving there till 2 a.m. And it, you apply that type of work ethic to an industry like real estate. I really do think that's one of the things that propelled my career pretty quickly because I was running circles around people. I was out working people in Northeast Ohio when I first got licensed. And to me, that was not like an exhausting speed. It was the speed I was used to. If anything, it was a pretty casual speed when you consider the nature of showing homes and
Yeah.
it's fun and and it's like it's a little bit more informal and stuff like that. So for me, I really applied that work ethic and that preparation on how we approached being in the kitchen at some of these amazing restaurants to actually applying that to my real estate practice and some of the discipline and how I approached our business. And I really do think that's something that I attribute to uh, the success we had early on was the work ethic and discipline that I was taught in the restaurant industry.
Well, and in the restaurant industry, just to sort of put a finer point on this, which I think, or not a finer point, but my own little take on it, which I'm curious to get your opinion on, is when you work at the level of restaurants and you worked with the chefs that are at that level and the food prep and the sous chefs and the whole team, um, you never know when the Michelin guy's coming in to do his review, right? They don't give you the heads up. So you have to always, everything is precision, right? There's this
Everything.
precision model that we don't know when we're going to be judged on the world stage by some bozo at Michelin or whatever, the local newspaper or whatever. So we and people are paying a super high premium to be here. So everything is perfect. I first out of college, I worked for, well, second job out of college, but basically first job. I worked at Anheuser-Busch, and I know a lot of people don't automatically associate Budweiser, the beer, with the actual beer Budweiser with high quality, but there's a reason why, and it's not number one anymore now. I think Bud Light is number one, but Budweiser was the king of beers, as people know, for a long, long time. And it wasn't just because of the marketing. Like, they legitimately had a precision that other beer manufacturers didn't have. And I learned a lot of that from them at a similar sort of situation. I was like, oh, I'm working for the best, or the biggest rather, not necessarily the best, but the biggest. And I understand the precision that they played at was just a different level. So I imagine you have a lot of that as well.
Yeah, and what's interesting is before I was in Vegas before I moved back to Cleveland, and I worked at the Wynn, and Steve Wynn um, was notorious for treating, expecting him, holding himself accountable to the same actions that he holds all of his employees to. So, Steve Wynn would be walking through the casino, and if there was a wrapper or a little something on the floor, he'd bend over and pick it up. It's like,
Yeah.
and that was his expectations of, this is how we, when we are here, this is how we behave. This is how we approach the hospitality industry, and how we approach every single client should feel like this is a special experience and stuff like that. And there's a lot of, especially in that level of hospitality and restaurants and hotels and resorts, stuff like that. You talk about Disney and some of these other, like, philosophically, just like the people that do it the best. It's an experience. And when we can apply that to the consumer experience that we have in the real estate industry, I, I say this like with all due respect, but like the bar is set pretty low for our industry, which is a shame because it's such an important experience in people's lives. And so if you can provide a delightful experience or exceed the expectations of the customer, it creates long-term business, foundational type of opportunities that just create so much long-term business.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it's just precision and this experiential idea, like you talked about Disney. I don't know if this is a rumor, but I'd always heard, and maybe this is true. We'll assume it's true for the sake of me saying it. But if it isn't true, it's a heck of a good idea. Where even the people who work in the park, out with the even the people who are picking up trash, even the lowliest worker maybe in the park, if they come across a patron, one a vacation or a visitor, I believe if they're within a certain number of feet, they are expected to smile, look that person in the eye and smile. Like, they are expected not to be invisible. They're not supposed to ignore the patrons. They're actually supposed to make the patron feel good about,
Yep.
spending thousands of dollars to
An
walk around an
experience.
amusement park. Yeah, and it works, and it's important, and there's a precision to that. There's actually, that's just a rule, but it's a heck of a good rule. And I imagine, you've worked in places with those kind of rules where it's, well, hey, we're a premium brand, we're a premium product, and if you can take that premium sort of experience and give it to the even a non-premium consumer, boy, you're going to make them feel like $1 million, and that's what everybody wants to
Well,
feel like.
and what it is, and you hear this term thrown around a lot, or this word thrown around a lot, but what it is, it's the culture. It's a culture of, they hire to that culture at Disney or to these, it's like, it's an expectation as soon as you walk in the door. It's an expectation even before you walk in the door in the interview process. This is what we are expecting from our team members. And when you when you create that culture, and that's what essentially uh, everyone is bought into, then all of a sudden it doesn't feel like abnormal, or
Yeah.
it's not exhausting. It's effortless,
Standard operating procedure at some point. It just becomes, that's how we
Yeah,
do things. Now, I would
precisely.
I would love to find out, because Ryan didn't just become a realtor and become successful. His team is the most successful large team in Ohio currently, which is an incredible. Ohio is not a small place. I would love to know how you started. Obviously, again, your parents. You probably had a good sense of what it takes being around it, because your parents, I'm sure you just identified sort of the work that's needed, and also having this incredible work ethic ingrained into you in your previous culinary career. I'm curious though how you started, because you still had to start with zero clients, right? And I'm curious on like what that process was to grow from just starting in 2009, I believe is around that when you said, to now last year doing 600 with your team, 600 transactions, which is beyond it. You'd have, I think here in Chicago, I'd have to look at the stats, but I think you'd be the largest team in Chicago as well. So it's obviously a massive accomplishment. So I'm curious, how did you ramp up?
Yeah, so it's not like the glamorous story that I think like people expect. I actually spent the first 2 years living in my parents' basement. I was also working full time at a restaurant serving. I moved to the front of the house to make some money.
Wow.
The market, this was right. I moved back at the end of
Right,
2010. So
right when it all crashed.
yeah, so it's like not the best time to like get into real estate. So it's like I wish I could say like my first couple years were like, peaches and cream, but it was rough. Like, and I was learning, and I spent the first couple years I was doing everything from putting in signs to I really wasn't selling that much. There wasn't much to sell. Photographing houses, in data input, MLS, like a little bit of everything, right? And then finally, I think it was 2012, um, I finally was like, Mom, Dad, I got to get out of your house. And like, I'm 29 years old. Like, what do we, and it's funny because in Vegas, I was living my best life. Bought a house when I was 22, and living a pretty good young person's life. And
Sure.
I finally said, I'm like, if we're gonna do this, let's do this. And I moved out of their house, got my own place, and I said, let's attack this. The market was starting to open up just a little bit. It was like 2012. We're finally like we bottomed out, and now I think we're like on the upswing. And I got a coach. I got super aggressive into calling expireds and FISBOs and lead generation. I got very aggressive. One of the things that I had going for myself was I was probably 29 at the time, and there were a lot of people moving back to Cleveland. My friends, when you grow up in Cleveland, as soon as you turn 18, you get as far away as possible. Like, it's just one of those things. Like either you go to college or you move to
Yeah.
Chicago or you move
Yeah.
to LA or New York or wherever. It's like you grow up and you look at this small town and you're like, I just can't wait to get out of here. The funny thing is, after a decade of being away, you realize how great Cleveland is. And so people start to move back just like I did, right? And so I was I started getting a lot of people that were moving back once I started having a little bit more success. They were like, hey, Ryan, long time. It's been 10 years. We're moving back. We see you're doing well in real estate. So I started to pick up a lot of those first time home buyers and the people moving back. But once I hit like 2012, 2013, I just started out working everyone. And I was in the office early. I was out on appointments late, and I was just grinding really hard. And we got to a point where I remember my parents used to always sell like 35, 40 homes a year together. I think we got
Which
to a
is
point where after
a great business, by the way.
great
Yeah.
business, no expenses, very low,
Yeah.
high margin, like very respectable business. I think after that year, we maybe sold 80 or 90 homes, and I was like, all right, this is happening. Like, let's do this, right? And then we just went through the let's bring on an EA, and we brought on someone to kind of manage
What,
the
EA
operations,
executive assistant? Is that what EA means?
executive assistant. Yep.
Got it.
And then from there, we basically started growing kind of organically, like or I guess at the time it was an ops, operations person. But they pulled a lot of the things that I'm weak at away from me to let me continue to focus on selling and growing. And then before you know it, we had more opportunities than I could handle. And then we brought on a buyer's agent. And it's kind of like the seventh level type of model, how you continue to grow and leverage yourself more and more. And before you know it, it's probably 2015, 2016, and we were selling 250 homes a year. And then it was like, okay, now I started hanging out in circles where people were selling 500, 1,000 homes a year.
Yeah.
And although 250 at the time felt like a big deal, when you're hanging out with these people that are selling 1,000, it's like, I suck. It's like I'm worthless. And so then I started aspiring to run a business more based on what some of these other people are building. And it kind of
Sure.
showed me that it's like, let's
It's
not be
possible.
like a big,
Yeah.
it's possible. Let's not be a big fish in a puddle. Let's, be a small fish in an ocean and let's keep growing. And so the funny thing is we started really growing heavy from like 2017 to I say like 2021. And now we've been pretty stable. Obviously, the launch of Fellow, me building a whole other company, potentially slowed us down a little bit. But it's like, we've been hovering between that 500 and 600 units a year. And it's a very comfortable business. Our average agent sells about 45 homes a year on our team. So
Wow.
our agents are very high producers, very
Yeah.
high productive. Um, but now we're actually at a place where, once again, surrounding yourself with bigger agents and me being fellow has given me exposure to a lot of the biggest teams in the country. I see what some of these teams are building, and I realize the 500 to 600 units a year is nice, but we're selling ourselves short. We can continue to grow. So we just kind of turned on that growth mode switch basically this year, to really start accelerating and expanding what we're doing.
It's incredible. I know there's probably a lot of our audience that feels, oh, I can't relate to that kind of production. But I do want to say, and Ryan made this very clear about outworking the competition, being from his previous training of working at these high end culinary institutions and being expected to put in a lot of hours. But he was also not just putting in a lot of hours, he was doing the grunt work of real estate, which is, and you said this very quickly, and I just want to make sure everyone who heard it understands what this is. He mentioned about calling expireds and FISBOs, and I always assume everybody knows what that means, but just in case you don't, what that means is Ryan is calling people that do not want to hear from him because they have either hired a realtor who didn't get their home sold and they're probably pissed off about it, or it's somebody who goes, I am not going to work with a realtor. That's the for sale by owner. Again, I hope everyone knows what that means. But we are calling people that do not want our calls. Ryan's making those calls, and he's having success with it. These are, if you want to cut your teeth and really learn what you're made of, FISBOs and expireds are the battleground. They are difficult. They are tough, and these leads are sold to dozens of realtors in your area. They get the same leads you do, so you could be sharing the same phone number with about 15, 20 other agents, so you might be the 15th phone call that person's got the same day. So I'm making this a big deal because these are literally the toughest calls in real estate. And I think what a great place to just build character, resiliency, learn how to talk to people, outwork the competition, because you are definitely in competition on a FISBO or an expired. Everybody's trying, and even wholesalers are trying to call them. It's just all, they're getting bombarded. So sorry to make such a big thing about this, but it is important because it probably built. I'm curious what you learned from calling FISBOs and expireds, because nobody talks about it
Well,
anymore.
I sound like the old guy that when I was your age, I had to walk to school uphill both ways, bare feet and a couple feet of snow. Like, I used to role play and practice every day, and I try to really, press that upon my agents, the agents on the young team, and be like, guys, like, I don't think you understand the commitment I invested into the craft of getting really good at it, right? Um, and then the second thing is, uh, I realized that these are all just normal people, and they're all, one of our core values is get out of judgment and into curiosity. And every time someone I talk to is pissed off, it's like they're not pissed at me, right? They don't know me, they don't hate me, they don't. It's like, but they're in an uncomfortable situation, and the more you can approach a conversation as just a conversation, and I think I started to take less pressure off it and just listen more and come from a place of contribution and trying to understand more, versus I think so many salespeople, they have these scripts, and the scripts are supposed to be a path or a guide of what you're supposed to say. But when you're really, really dialed in, the conversation feels effortless, right? Like, this is what you do in your space, right? With podcasts and interviewing people, you make them very comfortable and opening up and talking. And it's like, that's our job when we're calling these type of leads, is to make them feel comfortable. And so sometimes if you just go through the script but you're not really listening to what they're saying, it's going to be it's going to be it's just not going to end well, right?
Yeah.
And so what I think I got really good at was so confident in my scripts and dialogues that I could sit back and actually listen and stop worrying about what the words on the paper say or what I'm supposed to say, and actually just use those as kind of guiding points for me to get to where I wanted to go. And it completely changed the game, and it changed the game on how I approach listing presentations, and it changed the game how we approach building Fellow. Um, as well, because it made me realize that like there's a lot of people out there that want our help, and it's just a matter of the presentation of how we get in front of them and show them what they're actually looking for is how we can actually help them. And so that was like it was very big for our business for me to kind of grind my teeth on those and build our business through that, because no matter what the market's doing, it could be 2010 all over again or 2020 when COVID. I feel like I built the skill sets to be able to go hunt essentially, and versus always just fielding inbound and nurturing and stuff like that. So I'd say our business wouldn't be where it was without that.
It's an incredible growth, and I think a great place to start talking about your newest endeavor. Again, I definitely want to ask you about balance in your life, because most realtors I know struggle with boundaries around, you know, taking care of themselves, their families, their friends, their social, their physical health, et cetera, and their business. And you're running two major businesses, trying to do that in a team, and whatever's going on in your personal life, and you have time to even jump on a podcast with me. So I definitely would love to hear. But before we get to balance, I want to talk about Fellow, because this I it's funny. I'm in charge of the technology for our firm, so I get pitched by a lot of tech companies because we have about 800 agents and whatever. I guess they think we'd be a good sale. So I get a lot of pitches by different tech firms, and rarely to never do I hear about seller prospecting tools. We obviously the easiest type of leads to generate are buyer leads, but there's already a lot of different companies out there fighting in that space, and you're fighting in a different space. You're playing in a different arena. I'm super excited to learn about it. So let's talk about it. So by the way, the website is hifellow.com, HIFELLO.com. But what is Fellow? Tell us about it.
Yeah, Fellow is a seller lead generation platform. And I think I always like to just preface, we don't sell leads, right? What we do is we help you incubate and help you create opportunities out of potential uh, opportunities that you've already acquired. Okay.
Now,
So,
I want to ask a quick question. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you because
it's,
I want to make this
oh,
point.
yeah,
Why did you decide not to sell leads? Obviously, you could have built that too. You could have
yep.
built a lead generation platform, and instead you said, I want to build more of a sphere of influence, nurturing already in your database seller lead platform. Why the decision to go to somebody's internal sphere versus the entirety of the market?
Yeah. So let me take the story back a couple years, and I think this will help answer that question. So you mentioned in the intro, we had a company called Flash House. Flash House was a direct-to-consumer iBuyer that we built in Northeast Ohio. And within 3 years, we received about 5,500 offer requests from sellers. Okay. So we are going direct to consumer over 3 years, postcards, all these things, spending about six figures a
Sure.
month, driving these sellers or homeowners to request a cash offer. What was interesting to us was less than 2% of those people that requested an offer actually sold their home to us. So that
Okay.
left 98+% of people that were sitting there. I'm a homeowner and I'm
Hands raised.
considering,
Right.
thinking, hands raised, right? And so the young team was the beneficiary of those 98% of people because I owned both companies, right? So we realized that, like, wait a minute, what are what are we doing here? Why are we trying to buy homes? Why are we going direct to consumer? We feel like we've created some pretty powerful tools that have really helped us reduce down our customer acquisition cost as we go direct to consumer. Let's empower agents with these tools, right? And originally the whole thesis was We gave the agents the technology when we betaed it, and all we wanted to do was be the iBuyer standing behind them. So what it looked like was I'd call up you, DJ, and say, "Hey, I've got a product. It's free. All you have to do is upload your entire database, and we're going to start incubating these opportunities. And if they want an instant offer or a cash offer, we're going to be the one to fulfill that cash offer behind you and partner with you. And if we buy that house, then you'll get to list it from us. You'll be our listing agent after we buy it." So we piloted this in Northeast Ohio in June of last year. And we brought about 600 agents on the platform, and it worked. It was incredible. We started generating all these cash offers, and all these people started raising their hands. But at the time, June of last year, interest rates started to rise.
Right.
July, they rose some more, and then they kept rising. And before you know it, they're at 7%. And we didn't want to buy houses anymore because there was so much volatility.
Sure.
But we found this unique tool that was driving us essentially opportunities for free versus us spending the six figures a month going direct to consumer and trying to acquire new opportunities. So we realized that there were so many opportunities that were already acquired by the agents that were just sitting in their database, that were, that was stagnant, that they haven't talked to for a couple years. And so if we could create this, essentially this engine that started to make those opportunities rise to the top, well, now all of a sudden the agents don't care because it's not costing them anything. We're getting opportunities for free. So we have a zero customer acquisition cost. Long story longer, we realized, wait, why are we trying to buy houses? Let's just create a white labeled product and sell it to agents essentially to let them do with whatever they want. They can buy the houses. They don't have to buy the houses. Now, ironically, we launched it in October. I'd say more than 60% of our teams don't even do a cash offer program. They just use it from the seller lead generation component. So we just realized instead of selling leads, agents are already spending so much money trying to buy leads. Let's be a platform that's a flat fee that helps them actually create opportunities out of the existing database, out of the prospects that they've already bought. And that's where the real money is. The money is in your database. And if we can help them shake that up and create these seller opportunities out of it, it's really powerful.
Yeah, I used to used to have on Coach Ryan D'April every month on the show, and I think he's coming back shortly for the fans of the show. He'll be back, but he is fond of saying, so I'm just quoting him because it's his statistic. 16% of your database is going to transact in going to need a realtor or transact in real estate in some way. Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Transact in real estate over the next 12 months. I'll say it again. 16% of your database, according to Ryan, will transact in real estate in the next 12 months. And if you have, let's just say 100 people in your database, which would be a pretty, moderately sized database, that's 16 potential transactions, but it's really more like possibly 32 transactions because you have some people that'll sell or sell and then buy something else or buy and sell, whatever. So for people that are like wanting to buy leads, because again, the inclination is my database, I don't have any current exciting offers coming up within my sphere of influence. So I need to seek outside. And Ryan would say, yeah, you probably don't. It's probably all going on internally that you're missing.
And here's 100%. And here's what's interesting. So if you do buy new opportunities, well, let us help you convert those opportunities into also a seller, right? So we do three things really well. We take the client's existing database, we plug it into our platform, and we start incubating them, trying to drive seller leads. And these can be old buyer leads, old past clients, old whatever, right? But we plug them into our platform and start incubating them, and basically creates a significant amount of traction on the seller side. We also take buyer leads in real time and sync them over to our platform to try to help them to become sellers, right? Because a lot of people that are looking to sell their home first start off looking to buy. So if you're getting a buyer lead, that's a predictive seller lead, right? Maybe 6 months, 12 months out. Yeah. So how can we start incubating them, right? And then the third thing we do is we provide this marketing suite of products that are things like embeddable widgets and landing pages and QR codes to really help agents push it out organically to continue to drive more people into that funnel. And what we found was, so we were doing the iBuyer. We saw 38% of people that requested an instant offer would go to market within 12 months, right? Like, so it's a start of, if your mind is going to, I wonder how much I can get for my house cash right now.
You're going to sell in the next year.
The first thought, you're going to sell in the next 12 months. What's interesting,
but you're not going to sell next week. You might sell in month 11.
You're not going to sell next week.
Right.
month 11, but our job is to incubate them and continue to
Yes.
drive them back to our custom dashboard that we build for these agents that keeps them working down the funnel. And what's interesting is we had another revelation. Um, the home value message is the most universal message to every homeowner across the country, right? What's my home worth? And so what we do is, and what we've gotten really good at is we leverage the home value message, what my home's worth, to drive them into the funnel. And they land on this custom white label dashboard branded to your team, and it's all customizable. And we keep bringing them back to that dashboard every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks.
It's
Your home values
brilliant.
change, click here.
Of
And then there's
course.
these additional call to actions, like if you want to do a cash offer, or if you want to get a CMA, or if you want to sell now, or whatever it is. So the goal is keep driving them back to that dashboard through the message of home value. What's my home worth? But then once they get there, try to get them down the funnel by hitting additional call to actions, like as they get more serious, stuff like that. And it's interesting. I'm seeing people in the young teams database, 7, 8 months that have been incubating that finally now are clicking, I want to sell my house. And it's like, us as agents, we're so impatient. We want to attack them right as soon as they become a new lead. And a lot of times that's not when they're ready, but then we give up on them. Fellow is sitting there incubating them and turning them over.
It's everything you said is so absolutely right on the money. As a marketer, I was just thinking about, I'm a condo owner, and I was thinking I'm going to use a different example. So for all of us, who or probably most of us receive experience monthly email that says your credit, or at least I do, it's free. But I get like this thing that says my
Yeah.
credit
Credit
score went up.
Karma.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. You're getting that, and it's kind of, I always call it like the report card of life. It like lets you know how you're doing. If not that credit's the end all be all, but the point is that every month I get an email. In fact, I got it like the other day from Experian, one of the three credit unions, and it said, "Hey, congratulations, your score went up by 3 points." And it's like, who cares? But it made me feel good. And to bring that into real estate, is one thing that realtors always forget is that even if you're not looking to sell your home, it's kind of nice to know what it's worth on a monthly basis. So this idea of incubate, I mean, what is Zillow? Zillow is two things. It's here's all the homes for sale in the area, and here's what your home's worth. That's really all Zillow is. And they're brilliant because people do want to know what their home is worth. And if you can, instead of them having to seek it out, if you can send that to them, and you can, send that out to them proactively, which is what Fellow does. I mean, that is significantly important. I'm in a new development. I bought 2 years ago. I have received zero communications from the 46,000 realtors in Chicago that say, "Hey, you bought your home for this, and it's now actually, well, there's probably a reason. It's probably worth less than what I paid for it. But the point is, let's just say it even was worth more. I still wouldn't have gotten any messaging saying, just so you know, your home's we think your home's actually appraised by X. Would love to talk more about that with you further. And by the way, 2 people have already sold properties within that 2 years. So it's not like people aren't transacting in my building. They are, because life events, people move, whatever. I love it. I think that is so brilliant. So I sort of stole your thunder there, but tell me more about how Fellow actually does the incubation part, the automatic part of nurturing.
Yep. Everything is email lead generation. So it's like we have found, we completely sync with everyone's CRMs. So if they're doing automated texting plans or calling out of their CRMs, they can. But basically, what we've gotten just really good at is driving that opportunity into the funnel and then just incubating them through email and continuing to bring the consumer back every 2 weeks and landing on that dashboard. And like I said, I mean, it's powerful when you build a database and you realize that if they're not landing on your dashboard, that means they're probably going to a different person's dashboard or to Zillow's dashboard or realtor.com or whatever it is, where they're trying to essentially sell that opportunity to another agent. And so we're really trying to help agents on the seller side uh, get their ecosystem, get their database back, essentially. And it's been really powerful. It's why we've grown as quick as we have. We're working with the biggest agents all over the country. And once again, the buyer side is very oversaturated. Everyone is selling buyer leads. we just feel like we're kind of playing in our own sandbox with focusing on
Yeah.
seller lead generation. And I think now with just the climate of the market, with there being limited inventory, it's just really clicking.
I love it. I have a bold prediction that Ryan's company, if they haven't already been receiving a buy offer from Lone Wolf Technologies, they buy everybody who has a great product. So that is I'm just being silly, but Lone Wolf seems to acquire really great idea companies, and this is one that I would imagine they would love to have in their portfolio. But Fellow is really cool because you're so right. Everybody wants seller leads because, of course, those are
Yeah.
the arguably easier of the two types of real estate leads to have to work, and yeah, they are the most coveted leads. And you're what you're doing is you're not selling leads, of course, because you're actually just taking somebody's existing sphere of influence and you're nurturing it for them. And a lot of companies claim to do that, but I would sure love to put my faith in a company that's helmed by the guy who runs the largest Keller Williams or the largest team in Ohio. And I'm not saying that to shower praise on you, but just objectively, that seems like a good idea for me.
Well,
If I'm gonna,
and my
yeah,
team's using it. My team's using it day in and day out, and so we're building it. With feedback based off of, uh, feedback based off of what my team's seeing and when we're breaking it and where we're having success and stuff like that. So we are the user. So this is not like us being some tech people in Silicon Valley, that have no ideas what it's like to be in the agent's shoes.
and you're not a tech guy. That's not your background. How did you? How and why did you decide to even build Fellow?
Um, you know what? It's all been an accident, right? Everything's been unintentional, but it's like we saw an opportunity and then we saw another opportunity and then we saw a demand and then next thing you know, it's like this is happening. And like I said, it was not what it was. I was just trying to give myself a competitive advantage, and it turns out that we realized that it's very when you power it with technology, it's very expandable and scalable, and it just kind of came organically.
I think too what Fellow can do, which is I'm curious to get your thoughts on, is it's not about necessarily waiting for somebody to say raise their hand and say I'm ready to sell. It's actually it can be influential because I know if tomorrow if I got an email from an agent that was using Fellow that said, "Hey DJ, just FYI, I think your condo is appreciated $200,000," which by the way would be that's a fantasy. It's not going to happen, but if it did, I'd be like, I'd think about selling. Am I actively seeking out the Zestimate or what it's worth? I'm in this industry and I have no idea what my place is worth at the moment because I'm not looking. But if somebody were to send me, now obviously that's an extreme example, but if somebody were to just to send me, hey, here's what's happened, here's what other places are going for in your area, just updates. Again, the service part of this job in between the sales, the here's what's important to you, Mr. Homeowner or Mr. or Mrs. Renter or whoever. This is what you'll need today, even though you might not need me for the next 5 years. Here's what can be helpful. That's what really Fellow does. Is it's consistently reminding, giving the sphere of influence actual value in between transactions.
Yeah. Well, and what we've gotten good at is what we've gotten really good at is actually getting them to take actionable items to work their way down the funnel to become real sellers to from a lead generation standpoint and stuff like that. So there's a lot of products out there that are informative and like to incubate, but what we've gotten really good at is actually creating leads, and actually creating conversion, I guess I should say, out of these existing opportunities to get them to raise their hands to actually become listing appointments for you.
Amazing. Well, everybody, Ryan has got to run. He is running the largest team in Ohio. He's got stuff to do. So let's support him. We're going to get him back on the show because we're going to do a deeper dive into how he runs his team as well. But highfellow.com is the website. HIFELLO. Guys, seller lead gen. Seller lead gen. That's the gold. Those are the Glengarry leads. If you know
Those are
Glengarry,
the
Glen
Gary
Ross.
leads.
Yeah, those are the we called them the Glengarry leads at our. But anyway, those are the top of the mountain leads. Highfellow.com. Learn about what they can do with your sphere of influence to get you more seller appointments. And also, guys, if you're in Northeast Ohio, you should probably work at the Young Team. Let's just be honest. Go to theyoungteam.com, learn about what these guys do. Maybe you'd be a great fit for them. They have high expectations, so they don't take it just anyone. But they're Keller Williams, awesome, amazing institution. Obviously, Ryan and his team are insanely successful and great guys. So please reach out to them if you think what they could offer and what you could offer them and they could offer you. So anyway, theyoungteam.com is the place to go. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show. I know how busy you are and appreciate, and I'm so excited to watch I keep wanting to call it High Fellow, but the website's highfellow.com. I'm excited to see the trajectory of Fellow and how you continue to evolve the product. And maybe we'll do like a giveaway for our listeners at some point, or some sort of something.
That'd be awesome.
I
just
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I appreciate, I mean, it's just cool to, spend time and hang out with you. And, just, there's not been a lot of really incredible you've had a pretty strong audience on here. So I'm honored to be a part of that list.
Yeah, well, you were super easy to talk to. I feel like you and I could be brothers in some way. So for everyone, let's support Ryan and check out highfellow.com. Let's also check out the Young Team. By the way, if you guys have clients that are moving to Ohio, or reach out to Ryan. He and his team would love those referrals. Guys, last thing, please tell a friend about this show. We would appreciate it. Just think of one other agent in your office that would love to hear how somebody goes from being a top chef to a top real estate agent. Shoot them over a link to this episode. You can find us at keepingitrealpod.com. We are also on all the social networks. So check us out. Just search, because it's not always Keeping It Real is not always the actual handle. So just search for Keeping It Real podcast, hit that subscribe button, and we appreciate it. Ryan, thank you for your time. On behalf of Ryan and myself, we say thank you to the audience for sticking around to the very end. We appreciate you. Ryan, we will see you later, and we will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks, Ryan.